Hey guys, it's Venom, and before I start the actual video proper, I wanted to actually talk about a couple of things and regarding this particular build, because this build actually has a kind of some sentimental value to me as far as Destiny 2 goes. This one's not going to be edited, so you're gonna have to deal with me pronunciating things the wrong way and having some issues here. But I wanted to talk about this build because it's going to be very familiar to some people, and this is the actual build that kind of got me really deeper into Destiny 2. Not just the community, but actually into build crafting, into doing, it actually helped me get to my first Grand Masters and helped me to not only get used to doing them, but helping other people get through them. It helped me learn raids a bit more. I mean, it's helped me do a lot of things. And this build, you'll more than likely recognize. This one that's been around for a while. It's actually one that a YouTuber named Mactics actually put out. And he put out the build. I had been using this exotic, the Omniocculus, for a long time, and I thought I was a shit with it. I thought I knew everything there was about it, and he broke it down in a way that not only did I learn a lot of things about the build and the exotic that I had never known before, but I realized just how little knowledge I had in build crafting. That's not to say that it was a bad thing either. I mean, I learned a lot. I'm glad I listened to him. I'm going to link the link to the original video down below. So a lot of this is gonna be fairly similar to that build. Some things have changed. It's not the exact build it was before because some things have been adjusted since then, but it's pretty similar. But I just kind of wanted to say that is, if there was somebody that got me into doing build craft, it would be Mactics. And oftentimes I look at the builds he does. I've got plenty of my own builds that I do. I mean, I get inspiration from his stuff. I know everyone kind of has a lot of overlapping builds, but he was a YouTuber that kind of got me into doing build craft. So this is the one that kind of started it off for me. I thought about doing this one first on the channel, but I was pretty excited about doing the Stronghold build, so I chilled that one off. But this is a build that really did it for me. So if there's ever a build that I need to absolutely complete something, if I got to get past some content, this is the one I go to. This is the one. This is my number one. So this has a lot of sentimental value to me because this is a build that got me into build crafting, and because this is definitely my main build. But I was going to say thank you, Mactics. You are the one that kind of got me into doing a lot of these builds, or got me into doing build craft, period. And yeah, that's why I enjoy making builds now. And this is kind of what has expanded me into using all three characters a lot more. It expanded how many different exotics I use. It kind of helped me gain knowledge about a lot of different aspects of the game. And yeah, so I just wanted to say that beforehand. So we'll go ahead and get to the video. Thank you, guys. Alright, hello everyone, this is Venom, and we are here with the Omniocculus Ninja build today. Now this is a build that is very near and dear to my heart. This is a build that originally the YouTuber Mactics put out a very detailed, very descriptive video on. Is what got me into him, is what got me into buildcraft, and is what really led me to understand that even though I'd been using the Omniocculus at that point, I really had no idea the very basics of it. Like, I knew the basics, but I didn't know exactly what this build could really accomplish. Now, back in the day, this build would actually make it to where you could be invisible forever. However, things have changed a little bit since then. You can't quite do that, or you can, but it's very difficult. However, you can stay invisible most of the time. Now, as always, I'm going to go over everything you need for the build. I'm going to go over everything that's optional, what things are not, and let's go ahead and dive into it. Now, the first things first, the Omniocculus is a exotic chest piece for the hunter. On paper, it says it's got the Beyond the Veil perk, and it is you gain a second smoke bomb charge and have damage resistance while invisible. When you make an ally invisible, they gain damage resistance while invisible, and you gain melee energy. Now, what does all that mean practically? Well, you're going to get a second smoke bomb charge. On top of that, whenever you make yourself or your allies invisible, you guys are going to gain damage resistance. So as long as you're invisible, wearing this chest piece, you make yourself invisible, you're going to get damage resistance. It's pretty hefty damage resistance as well. Also, whenever you make your allies invisible, you're going to actually gain melee energy back. You're going to actually get back half a charge of your smoke bomb for each ally you make invisible. So you hit one person, you're going to get half a charge. If you hit two people, you're going to get a full charge back. Essentially, it's going to refund the entire invisibility to you. So you can, with two people, make yourself invisible forever, infinitely. I'm going to go over the aspects and kind of show you how this build works, and then we'll go over all of the needed and optional parts. Now, both of these aspects are going to be needed. Now, first up, we've got the Trapper's Ambush. It is activating Quickfall to spin your melee charge and dive to the ground. It will creates a large smoke on impact, which then dissipates. Targets caught in the cloud are weakened and allies are made invisible. Your smoke bomb makes allies invisible while attaches to nearby surface or targets. Basically, all this means is you basically get the shadow dive, and when you use that, it's going to use up a smoke bomb charge and then make you and anyone caught in that charge invisible if they're an ally. Now, enemies are going to get weakness from that instead. Now, if you don't know, the Hunter smoke bomb will actually, it'll obscure their vision, but it'll also hit them with weakness and will blind them a bit. But we're going to be using the Trapper's Ambush to instead slam to the ground. What that is going to do is actually increase the duration of our invisibility. There's something else we're going to stack with that to increase it even further, but we're going to mainly be using Trapper's Ambush to turn ourselves and our allies invisible. Now, the other needed aspect is going to be Vanishing Step. And this one simply makes it to where when you dodge, you turn invisible. It's the easiest way to turn invisible as a hunter. Now, next up, that's also going to be needed. Gambler's Dodge. You cannot use Marksman's Dodge for this build. You have to use Gambler's Dodge. What that does is when you dodge by an enemy, you're going to get back a melee charge, which means that you are going to get back a charge of your smoke grenade, or a full charge of your smoke grenade. That means that, thanks to Vanishing Step, whenever you dodge near an enemy, you not only turn invisible, but you're going to have a guaranteed next invisibility already in the pocket ready to go because you've used your Gambler's Dodge. Now, of course, with a jump, you're going to want to use triple jump. You don't have a choice on your melee because it's always going to be Snare Bomb. And the best grenade to use for any Void build is going to be the Vortex Grenade. You can use other grenades if you want to, but Vortex is going to be your best bet for everything. Now, next up, for Fragments. These first two Fragments are going to be pretty much mandatory. The second two, not so much, but I would highly, highly recommend to use them anyway. First up is going to be the Echo of Obscurity. This is going to increase your recovery by 10, and it's going to make it to where when you finish an enemy, you turn invisible. So, y'all, this is always going to be a very good one to have for any invisibility build or any void build, period. This is letting you turn invisible whenever you finish an enemy. On top of that, we're going to want the Echo of Persistence. This makes it to where all your void buffs last longer. That is Invisibility, Overshield, and Devour. It's also going to lower your mobility some, but it's worth it because you want that increased invisibility, and that is going to stack with the Trapper's Ambush. So that's actually going to extend your visibility from Trapper's Ambush to 9 seconds. I think without it, it's like 7 seconds. Now, the next two, we've got Echo of Starvation. Echo of Starvation makes it to where when you pick up a Void Breach or an Overpower, you're going to get Devour. Devour is always good to have on any Void build. And the second one is going to be the Echo of Cessation. Finisher final blows create a burst of void damage that causes nearby combatants to become volatile, and defeating volatile targets creates a void breach. So that's going to be how we create void breaches. Void breaches are important for this build because when you pick them up, they're going to get you class energy. So void breaches automatically grant you class energy when you pick them up. And class energy, or class ability, is the easiest way to turn invisible twice with the hunter. Again, every charge of class ability you have is going to give you 2 different invisibility options. So that's why class ability is such important for this build. Now, the way you play this build is very, very simple. You are going to use your Trapper's Ambush to turn yourself, and if possible, your teammates invisible. And you're basically going to have that invisibility tool, period. This is not something where you're going to run into the middle of the field invisible or anything. You're just going to be able to turn invisible when you need to. This is another thing to where you're going to have a tool in your toolkit. This is not something to where invisibility is how you're going to defeat the enemies. This is just how you keep yourself safe. You're still going to have to go out and kill enemies using your very specific weapons. You're still going to need to know what the layout of the Grandmasters are. You're still going to need to do all these things. No build is going to just kind of play for you. This is just going to be a tool in your toolkit. And this is a tool that allows you to just be invisible whenever you want. Well, you're going to ask, why should you turn invisible? Well, 1, you can get out of danger. You can rescue your teammates if you need to. In fact, this build is pretty much, if you've got to get somebody out of danger, this is a build to do so. You can not only rescue your teammate, but turn them and you invisible again to get out of danger. This is a build that is going to be able to take on and get to very dangerous spots. It's going to be able to knock out objectives in different Grandmasters. There are some where you actually have to carry objects from point A to point B while there are enemies around. It's very difficult to do that with any other build except for an Omniocculus invisibility build. It's very, very difficult to do that. This build can basically do whatever it wants to when invisible except for do damage, and even that one, you can kind of do damage with certain weapons and certain loadouts. Most of the weapons are going to depend on what it is you're trying to do as far as Grandmasters. And again, this is a build that I would recommend mostly for Grandmasters or for Master Raids or Dungeons. Now, if you want to, you can use some weapons that do damage over time like the Wither Horde. You've also got the Dragon's Breath or the Anarchy, but for the most part, you're mainly going to be using your invisibility just as that emergency tool to help you or your teammates out. Now, what are the mods we're going to use for this build? Like always for the head mods, you're going to be using 1 heavy ammo finder and 1 heavy ammo scout, along with the harmonic siphon. That's going to create orbs of power for us. Now, for this one for the arms, you can honestly swap out firepower and heavy-handed, whichever one you want to add in there, but you are going to want a couple copies of focusing strikes. That's going to grant you class ability energy when you cause damage with a powered melee attack. So that's going to be whenever you throw your smoke grenade, you are going to actually get back class energy quicker. It will also count for your shadow dive. Now, it's going to be a lot of energy, but it's going to be enough to kind of help get your class energy back. And we're going to want as much class energy as possible for this build. Now, the class ability for the Hunter recharges faster than your class ability. It's like 17 seconds. So that's going to give us invisibility a lot, but we're still going to want to lower that cooldown as much as possible. So anything you can to lower that class ability, we're going to do. Like I said, you can use firepower or heavy-handed for this one. Personally, I use firepower for it. Next up, just go ahead and add in whatever resistance mod you want to for this one. It's going to, again, depend on what it is that you're doing, Grandmaster-wise. Personally, I would say you want to toss on concussive dampener and melee damage resistance. I say this because you're going to spend a lot of time up close and personal to enemies, both using your shadow dive and using your dodge ability. You're going to want to make sure that anything close to you is not doing that much damage to you. Now, you can swap these out for any other element of resistance you want to, or you can also swap it out for, say, fonts of endurance if you want a little bit of extra resilience. And as you can see, my resilience is not at 100. We're going to talk about that here in just a minute. I know I said you always want to get that up to 100. There are some exceptions. This is going to be one of them. So we'll talk about the resilience here in just a little bit. For the leg armor mod, again, we're going to be using a copy of Absolution. That's going to give you energy for everything. I recommend having that on no matter what. If you've got no other ability or cooldown reducing mods on, I would toss on 1 Absolution because it's going to cool it down for everything. Now, again, we're going to have on the Insulation. That's going to be, we're going to reduce the cooldown for our class abilities when we get Pickup and Overpower. Again, everything we can do to reduce that class ability cooldown is what we want to focus on. You don't want to worry about your melee ability cooldown because the class ability recharges faster, and if we've got our class ability, we know we can get another melee charge automatically with that. And again, a copy of Recuperation to give us that automatic boost to health. Now, we're not going to worry too much about something like attraction or anything for the class ability or class armor. You really don't need powerful attraction because you're going to be invisible if you need to be able or need to go out and get an overpower, so don't worry about it too much. You are going to definitely need proximity ward. This is going to be an absolute must-have for this one, especially since we're going to have the Echo of Obscurity. Now, finishers and Grandmasters can put you in a very precarious spot because when you're finishing an enemy, if you don't have that overshield, you're essentially a sitting duck for any other enemies that are around you. Now, using a finisher is basically the cheapest way to turn invisible. You don't have to spend anything to do it. You don't got to spend a melee charge. You don't got to spend a class ability charge. Just as automatic invisibility when you finish an enemy. But it can be very costly without that overshield. So that's why you want to have that Echo of Obscurity and that overshield when you're finishing enemies. After that, the rest of them really are going to be up to you. Now, personally, I like to use the Reaper mod. You aren't always going to be able to get kills right after using it, but it is one extra way to get orbs of power. You can also add in the utility finisher. This is one to where if you have 3 stacks of charge in your armor, if you get a finisher, you will also get your class ability back. So again, anything I've got that I can get my class ability back with, I will go ahead and use. Now, today we're going to demonstrate using a Master Lost Sector. So I'm going to show you pretty much how it works using this build here. So we're going to go in. Now, the first thing we want to try to do is to get up close to an enemy so we can use our Shadow Dive, but it is not necessary to do so. So we want to go ahead and use our Shadow Dive first. You can see we've got 9 seconds. To continue being invisible, we want to get up close to an enemy, and right about 1 second, we want to dodge, okay? That is going to refresh our timer and give us another melee charge. So you see we got another 9 seconds. So you also see that we got a melee charge again. We're going to Shadow Dive while invisible, and bam, we're invisible again. So you can see we got 3 invisibilities back to back. Now we did get hit by an enemy there. That's because they can see you when you do your Shadow Dive, so you want to be careful on that one. So you can see now we are just now got to where you can do another dodge charge. Before, we would be able to get that back just a little bit quicker, which would allow us to cycle through these and stay invisible forever. However, we cannot do that anymore, so we're going to have to play around that a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and stun the enemy. We're going to get as close to him as we can. Get our Dodge charge back. So we're going to want to try to go ahead and play around these guys. So we're going to try to dive in the middle of these enemies. The reason we want to try to do that is so we can get them down to finisher range. You can see these guys are in finisher range. Now in Grandmasters, that might not be enough to do it. But here in Masters it is. You can see whenever we use our finisher, we're getting our overshield, and it's refreshing our invisibility. When we get our dodge, we can dodge our enemies. Now you can see how we only had 7 seconds on that dodge. That's because we didn't turn invisible using our shadow dive. You can see now using shadow dive, boom, we get to 9-second invisibility. And when we dodge while we're under that effect, it's actually going to give us the full 9 seconds back again. So we're going to go ahead and dive on them again. We're going to wait for us to get down to 1 second. And I'm going to show you guys it's going to refresh to 9 seconds this time. See? 9 seconds. So basically using a combination of hit and run tactics, we are going to be able to keep ourselves invisible and safe. Like I said, right now we're in a Master Lost sector, but if we were in a Grandmaster, we'd be able to get our charges back even quicker, because we would also be turning our allies invisible as well. You can see I've also got resist times 4, which is also the same resist you get with strongholds. So, I mean, this is a very good way to stay. Like, you can see here, these guys aren't able to kill me, and they can't even see me most of the time, which means I'm taking no damage, I'm in no danger. Now, you do have to keep in mind that when you are turning invisible, these guys do know where you're at before you turn invisible. That's one of the reasons why it's so important to have that overshield, that proximity ward on. Now, while this build is very, very good as far as keeping you safe and invisible, you got to keep in mind that you can't just stay invisible in front of enemies or, just use invisibility to kill enemies in a Grandmaster. You're still going to want to make sure you're taking up good positioning. You're going to want to make sure you're taking out enemies using your weapons. And of course, those weapons are going to depend on what Grandmaster you're doing. Now, I mentioned before, you can also use things such as the Wither Horde. You can use the Dragon's Breath or the Anarchy. That will allow you to pop those off and then turn invisible. That way you're kind of doing damage while you're still invisible. You can do the same thing with your grenades, or even using a melee charge if you have an extra one ready to go. There's a lot of ways you can kind of do damage while you're not visible, because of course once you fire you're going to turn visible again. But for the most part, you're just going to be using the invisibility as a tool. And again, this is a tool that allows you to get out of danger. It's a tool to help you resurrect your teammates. It's going to help you perform objectives. It's going to help you to reposition. And again, it's going to help you with a defense boost as well too. So there are a lot of different things that you can do with this build. This is one of those builds to where if you see somebody coming with an Omniocculus build in a Grandmaster, you're not even going to question it. There are very few builds that I would say are universal no matter what it is that you do. This is a build I would refer to as an absolute build. This, along with the strongholds, basically absolutely rewrite the rules of what it is you're playing and rewrite the rules of the Grandmaster. For strongholds, for example, the strongholds that the build I went over before for the Titans, it stops you from taking any damage. I mean, that's pretty much breaking the Grandmaster right there. This one makes it to where you're invisible almost all the time, and you can make your teammates invisible. Again, breaking the Grandmaster. This is a build to where if you play it correctly, you will never die. And not because you are so defensive, because you just can't be seen and you can get out of damage or out of danger so easily. So again, this is my go-to build for any Grandmaster. If I just absolutely positively have to get past something, this is my main class. This is my main build. This is one that's going to be great for Grandmasters. Now, I didn't mention I'd go over the stats for this one. Well, this one, you want to absolutely make sure that you have got 100 mobility on this one. And I'm going to show you why. Right now, you can see I've got 100 mobility, and right now it's got my cooldown at 38 seconds for Gambler's Dodge. That used to be 17 seconds before they increased it. Okay, I think when everything was, all of our buffs and everything were in place and you had 100 mobility, I think that was only like 17 seconds or so. You can see now they pretty much doubled that. That's why we can't stay invisible forever. Now, it's unfortunate. It is what it is. Yeah, even with that increased time, it's still a very, very powerful build. Now, after that, I'd go ahead and put all your stats in the discipline, and then resilience. Resilience is would probably be the better stat to put in versus discipline. If you're beginning Grandmasters, I'd go ahead and make sure you get mobility first and get to resilience after that for this particular build only, though, because you have to have your mobility as high as possible, or at least up to 100 for this hunter build. So you're not really going to be getting hit with this build if you play it right. So where every other build has got to max out the resilience, this one doesn't really have to. And even having this much resilience, you only need this much just to prevent yourself from getting one-shotted by snipers. But you're still going to want to go ahead and put in some resilience for this one. Mobility is a more important stat for this one is what I'm saying. I know I'm rambling a bit, but mobility is the more important stat in this particular build. Past that, like I said, I don't worry about putting anything in strength. It is going to be a complete waste to try to build for strength on this one to get your melee back quicker, because your melee is going to come back pretty much as soon as your dodge is ready to go. So if you're out of invisibility, your better bet is to try to boost up your class ability, try to get that back before you get your melee back, because the class is automatically going to get you your melee. So that's going to do for today, guys. Please sub to the channel if you like what it is we're doing. I'm probably going to go ahead and put some more Power content out now that it's been out for a little bit too, so be ready for that one too. I have not had time to live stream really because of real life stuff and trying to get these videos out, so we'll get back to that whenever we can. Yeah, if you guys want to see any particular builds, please comment down below what it is you would like me to see. I'll see if I can put that together for you. Thank you all for coming by, and here's a preview for the next video's build.